TIG welding overhead today. Tube to plate, walking the cup, and freehand. Let's do it.
We'll start off doing freehand on the first pass, and the second half of that we'll do a walk the cup, and then we'll do the same thing on the second pass. Freehand and walk the cup. We'll cut into it, do a quick polish on it, throw some acid etch on it, and test for penetration. For overhead TIG welding, three of the things that are the most important are being comfortable, being steady, and having a good line of sight. On a round object like this, that means moving your body around, a little bit of planning ahead, a little bit of body positioning so that you can maintain a good line of sight, so that you can see the tip of your electrode, you can see the puddle, you can see everything you need to see. I'm using the lay wire technique here, and that means just leaving the wire in the puddle. Lay wire technique doesn't work for all metals, but this is plain carbon steel, and so for both carbon steel and stainless steel, this technique works pretty well. To get full penetration into the root of the joint, it does help on this first pass to go with a 332 rod. I'm using 332 ER70S6 here. Again, I'll give all the details and all the settings at the very end. This first pass doesn't require a whole lot of movement from side to side, so I'm just barely wiggling it, trying to concentrate the heat on the center of the joint. Alright, it's time to walk the cup now for the second half of this first pass. You notice how I'm holding the torch. That's only one way. It's not the right way, it's not the wrong way. It just feels good for me for this joint. You can see I'm not gripping it like a gorilla. I'm gripping it just enough to hold it steady where I can wiggle that first pass in there. As I weld around this thing, I'm having to kind of gradually move my body a little bit, move my head around so I can see what the heck I'm doing. That's part of welding pipe. Walking the cup means you need to select the right electrode extension or stick out, whatever you want to call it. This is about right for me. Usually I've got it about the diameter of the cup or a little bit less. Sometimes I lay it out there a little bit farther. That's kind of a personal preference thing. If you lay it out too far, you can wind up dipping the edges of your tungsten in the puddle and things like that, but a lot of it's personal preference. With most things, there's a sweet spot. There's an area that's too far and there's an area that's not far enough, but you have to figure it out for yourself. Cup size matters when you're walking the cup. That determines your electrode angle, it determines how far you stick your tungsten out, and a lot of other things like that. So I'm using a number 6 cup for this first pass, and I'll switch over to a number 10 for the second pass.
Hey, real quick, if you like this type of video, there's a link in the description box here on YouTube where you can get on my mailing list. Over there, I can do short mini courses, beginner series, things that don't work too well here. There'll be bonuses, special deals, and giveaways. So after you're done watching this video, links in the description box. Let's get back to welding.
I'm at 150 amps, and this is 2-inch 3/16 wall tubing welded to 3/16 plate. This thing's getting pretty toasty. If I were trying to prop on this thing without a TIG finger on, I'd have to grip that torch way back further. I wouldn't be quite as steady. And I'm not feeling any heat on my fingers right now. Lets me concentrate on the weld. In addition to switching over to a number 10 jazzy cup, I switched over to 1/8 filler metal. Kept the amperage the same. It seems to be about right. You don't want your amperage so hot that the bottom of the puddle starts sagging. You don't want to have to go faster than you want to go. But you do want to get complete fusion. You want it to lay down. And it seems about right. Sometimes the amperage you use for something like this depends a lot on how comfortable you are and how well you can see it, how quickly you can move. Sometimes when you're out of position or in a jam, using a few less amps, knowing that it's going to be a little bit slower travel speed, can help. This is the Furick ceramic jazzy tin that I'm using here. It's great for walking the cup because it is ceramic. And I'm probably using about 20 to 25 CFH of argon. This is reminding me a little bit of a socket weld video I posted not too long ago where my friend Andrew Carden welded in the same position, a socket weld fitting, where he used both hands and freehanded the whole thing. And I'll link that up about right here somewhere. You want to try not to go too wide here, and you want to keep an eye on those toes. You can get undercut. If you're too hot, you go too wide, too fast, don't hold the toes long enough. So you want to keep an eye on those weld toes. Make sure you're not doing that. Anytime you're TIG welding carbon steel, it's best to remove all the mill scale, and even if it's cold rolled, it wouldn't hurt a bit to shine it up with a flap disc or a grinder or something like that. It's almost time to cool this thing down and cut into it and test it. Do you think it got penetration in the root? I'm almost 100% sure that I got penetration into that root and that I got complete fusion in between passes. But we're going to test it. One test is worth 1,000 opinions. It's crazy how turning something upside down and putting different light on it makes it look completely different, but that is the same weld. And we're going to cut into it now. I put a mark on them to identify the freehand and the walk the cup side. After I hit it with a flap disc, I'm going to go through these, at least about 2 or 3 of them, till I get down to a fairly fine finish. I really only need to go down to the red disc, but once I get it fairly smooth and the deep scratches out of it, it's ready for some etchant. For carbon steel, 5% nitrile etch works as good as anything. Naval jelly rust remover works okay, it just takes a lot longer. The bottom weld here is the one we're interested in, and that's the freehand side, and that looks like it got in there plenty good. And here's the walk the cup side. Pretty much the same results there. I don't see any evidence of lack of fusion on that bottom weld. I used 150 amps all the way, both passes, and I used this primeweld TIG 325. I'm trying to put some hours on it, so stay tuned for several videos using it. And here's a list of all the settings and details of the joint. Settings aren't everything, but they do save me time. Oftentimes when I'm doing something I haven't done in a long time, I look back to one of my previous videos and see what amperage I used, and it saves me time. A TIG finger will give you lots of options on where to prop when there is no prop. Aluminum is something that we all know heats up really quickly, and it's hard to find a place to prop on that. A TIG finger will let you glide along smoothly and will keep your fingers cool. My store is at weldmonger.com. That is how I support these videos, and I appreciate your support.